Good morning. Good morning. I'm really happy to be here. At least whenever we have a meeting of any kind, when people get together, whoever's speaking says good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and people respond, call and response. So it's something that I like to do to engage with you. I'm so pleased that Andrea had been in touch with me about this event, and so I would like to first of all thank Andrea, Ellen, and Heidi for the conceptualization and organization of this conference. I appreciate the opportunity very much to be here with such engaged and engaging artists, cultural workers, curators, and thinkers. I want you to know it's a great nourishment for me. My work has run along two tracks simultaneously. One, the creative production of work in my films and my writing, and two, organizing and advocacy within a range of community-based organizations on taking up concerns of housing, health, anti-racism, education, feminism. Pamela mentioned the Black Artists Network, which I was involved in helping to establish in Nova Scotia, the New Initiatives in Film program at the National Film Board, Studio D for women of color, women of First Nations, etc. The creative work is preoccupied with three primary interlocking themes. History, that's both oral and written. Memory, and I call it location / space / place. And when I pause to think about my work, I notice that these recurring themes are embedded in my work. And I go back to a quote from James Baldwin about history when he said, and I quote, "If history were past, history wouldn't matter. History is present. You and I are history. We carry our history." And that came from a talk, or something called, a book called Rap on Race that James Baldwin did with Margaret Mead. They had this conversation. In the textual history, it is as much what is not written as what is, and how I reinterpret and repurpose the work, and especially the repurposing of photographic image, both still and moving, and those images figure prominently in my documentary work. And when I think about the work I create has to do its own work. This is especially true for the documentaries, and so this is a slide from my first film, which I co-directed with Claire Prieto, Black Mother, Black Daughter, in 1989. And the work travels beyond me to places that I don't even know often. And it meets people that I'll never meet. And sometimes I hear back, and sometimes not. But the work has to be confident within itself to exist out there in the world without me. And so far, it's not complaining too loudly. It asks some fundamental questions about who we are in this country and how we tell stories and how the stories that we tell disrupt the comfortable narrative of Canada. It says, look here, look at us. Who do you see? This is a slide from Speaker from the Heart at Black Nova Scotia in 1993. And it also asks, what do we know about each other? How do we communicate with each other? How do we talk to each other? And I see the work as also an act of defiance against dominant attempts at erasure. Portia White was often erased after she died in 1968. There was no biography, there was nothing about this extraordinary woman. So it was really a passion of mine and probably a 10-year journey to make this film. And it exists in the lives and the stories and also in the material culture, such as the baskets made by Edith Clayton, the lady of Clayton, and her daughter Clara. And it says, We have long memories, and we defy you to say we do not belong, because we've been here too. It says, I dare you to say that I do not exist, that my existence has no meaning. In many ways, the work has its own internal conversation and interrelated references, some of which I've become conscious of over time. And the example of the relationship between Speaker from the heart of Black Nova Scotia and the little black schoolhouse. And in both films, there's an underlying question about the nature and the notion of democracy and its benefits, one of which is supposed to be an equitable and just education. My most recent work, Excavation, A Site of Memory, moved in a very new direction by creating a non-linear, non-time-based multimedia installation at the Dalhousie Art Gallery that allowed for a more personal iteration of these themes that I mentioned: history, memory, location, space, and place. It drew on my documentary practice and also on my writing to imaginatively concretize these themes in a temporal gallery space. And Pamela Edmonds wrote a brilliant essay for the catalog for this exhibition. And this is what I wrote in the front panel for the show. I am who they imagined. When we came here more than 200 years ago, they thought no hope we would not survive. We'd be a burden on the scarce resources of the new society, but survive we did. We made a way out of no way. We had to, for them, our kin who died in the Middle Passage. We survived for them and for the children they would never know, for the children like me from the generations in the future. I am who they imagined. Memory is non-linear, non-chronological Mobius strip. It is fluid, it is porous, it is a collage. In the site of memory, the real and the imagined coexist. Much remains unspoken about the historical fact that Nova Scotia was a slave society, and the traces of its legacy haunt us still. In the names of prominent Nova Scotians, people were present here from the earliest period. My ancestors were the black refugees from the War of 1812. I am their witness, and I am who they imagined. Thank you.